Welcome to Sarat Samvad, an initiative from Border Studies in South Asia. Our guest for today is Dr. Haribansh Jha, Executive Director for Center for Economic and Technical Studies in Nepal. Dr. Haribansh Jha is a visiting fellow at Observer Research Foundation and also contributes towards Vivekananda International Foundation. He was formerly a professor of economics at Nepal's Tribhuvan University and was formerly associated with ICWA, IDSA, and several think tanks in the past. He is an expert and has published several books related to Nepal borderland in the past 3 decades, with one of the earliest books published in 1995 titled Nepal India Border Relations. Now, Dr. Jha, thank you for giving us this time, and it is a privilege to talk to you. Now, our first question is that you have studied in depth the history of borders between India and Nepal. Can you share with us on the bordering practices that existed between both the countries prior to the boundary demarcation under the Treaty of Sugoli?
So first of all, let me thank you for taking this initiative to arrange this August meeting on Nepal-India border issues that has unique character in itself. Now, your first question is about these bordering practices between Nepal and India prior to the demarcation demarcation under the Treaty of Sagoli. Now, let me tell you that the relations between the two countries, as I already said, is very, very unique. And this Sugoli Treaty happened in 1815 and ratified in 1816. So almost, or rather more than 200 years ago. Now before that, we didn't have any demarcated border between Nepal and India. The border that we had was undemarcated, undefined, and therefore, at that time, that is before this Sugoli Treaty, the situation between the two countries was that if Nepal was strong in that during that period, then it used to claim more of territory in the Indian side, and similarly, sometimes the Indian side also claimed that its territory existed beyond, that is in the Nepalese territory. So this used to happen actually quite often between the two countries, and that was simply because of the fact that the two countries didn't have any demarcated border. Now, because of this, and there were some other also issues that led to a war between the East India Company and then the Gurkhas or the Nepalese between 1814 actually. And you might be knowing that Nepal's territory till that period extended far beyond this Mahakali River in the west, and then far beyond this Mechi River in the east actually. So, but then during the war, Nepal lost its territory, and in 1815, that is 2nd December 1815 actually, it was forced to sign an agreement that is called the Sugoli Treaty, in which Nepal ceded all its territory beyond this Mahakali in the west, and then this Mechi River in the east actually. And then that was also the time when Nepal ceded its territory in the Tarai region also at that time. That happened in 1814, and in, as I said to you, that in 1815 actually we had this agreement, and when the Indian side pushed this agreement to Nepal, it took some time, but then later on in 1816 it ratified it. So accordingly, Nepal ceded its territory east of this Mechi and west of this Mahakali. And then it was in 1816 that the two countries agreed that the border should be demarcated properly between the two countries. So the process is started actually, the process of demarcation of the border between Nepal and India basically started only after 1816. Now, prior to that, there was no curve, there was no any hindrance in the movement of people from one country to the other. So this remained the practice since time immemorial, or rather to say, this remained in practice actually, uh, um, and it was as old as the history of Nepal and India itself. So there was free flow of commodities, free flow of movement of the people and between the two countries. Now, important thing about is that even after this treaty, even after this Sogoli Treaty was signed between the two countries, the governments of the two countries agreed that there would not be any further movement of the people from one country to that of the other, despite the fact that their demarcation of the border was complete after a certain period of time, after 1816. So that was the status, and that was also because of the fact that there was no natural boundary between the two countries, except that the Mechi River existed in the east and then the Mahakali in the west. But in the entire Tarai region that borders this Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and part of Bengal, actually, there was nothing that kind of border like rivers, mountains, or anything. And then the relations between the two countries was so strong, rather at the people-to-people level, that both the countries thought that if visa or passport or any kind of regulations are imposed on their movement, that could create a problem actually that time. And so it remained unhindered. And then lastly, we see that in 1950, we had this Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the two countries. By that time, the Britishers had left this India, and we had this Rana Prime Minister at that time in 1950. And that was also the time when China was making its inroads into the Tibet, actually. So at that time, Nepal entered into this treaty of peace and friendship with each other. And each country recognized the citizens of the other countries as their nationals, meaning that national treatment were accorded to the people of one country into the other. And that treaty, which had happened almost 70 years ago, that is still in operation and is effective, that is working. So we see that even in the past, actually, we didn't have any curve, any hindrance, the movement of people from one country to the other, and that continues until today.
Thank you, sir, for the answer. Our second question is that you have stated in your work that both India and China have remained passive when it comes to the development of their own regions bordering Nepal. However, this has seen a dramatic change in past years. How do you see such change impacting the borderland regions of Nepal and its inhabitants?
Good question. You know that when this East India Company uh, was ruling India, at that time, um, it was at that time that we had this Treaty of Sogoli, and then this whole border demarcation issues were completed at that time. No, at that time, the thrust of this East India Company was not on the development of the regions, of its own regions that border Nepal actually at that time. It had more focus, it had more priority for the development of the coastal cities in India itself, like Ahmedabad or Mumbai or say Kolkata, like that actually, because that was more rewarding to them. That was more economically profitable to them. So any kind of investment in those mega cities or in those coastal regions, that was commercially more advantage to the producers than just making any kind of investment in the border regions of Nepal and India. Actually, that was the situation. So, and even after India achieved independence, we see that there was no much change in the new India's policy for the development of its own territory, actually, uh, uh, that bordered Nepal, actually, bordered Nepal. That may be simply also because of the fact that there were no minings, there were no such opportunities, economic opportunities in Bihar or Uttar Pradesh area that could give much of the benefits, economic benefits to the government of India. So this entire region actually, the regions in the Indian side of the border itself, that remained lastly overlooked, if not ignored, for a very, very long time. So even till today, we see that the position is more or less like the same. Now, when we talk of our northern border, we see that 90% of our border, that is, we have 1753 kilometers of border with India and nearly 1400 kilometers of border with China. Now, with China, what we find today is that 90% of the regions, they are rugged mountains, high hills, and so much of these areas are not inhabited by the people even until to this day. It was very difficult. That is the situation with China. But let me tell you that when we, that is 200 years ago, when we talk of this period, Sugauli Treaty, 200 years ago, at that time, China was not our neighbor actually. Our neighbor was virtually this Tibet. China became our neighbor, that is Nepal's neighbor, only, only after 1950 actually. And virtually only after 1950, because we had this first diplomatic relations with China in 1955, and then we had this visa regulation with passport and visa regulation with China in 1956 actually there. So before 1955 and 1956 actually, the only problem in the movement of people from Nepal to the other side of the border at that time, Tibet, there was no curb, there was no hindrance there. It was almost the same like India actually, what you see until today. But then the only problem that hindered actually the movement of people from one country to the other in our northern side was the big Himalayan regions actually. And I just say to you that this is the area that is most difficult to cross. So it was more a natural boundary. Himalaya just stood as the most natural boundary between the two countries that checked the movement of people from one country to that of the other at that time. This was the situation, and that remained the situation for a very, very long time. But let me tell you that there has been a dramatic shift actually in the past years in terms of development of the two regions, that is the border regions that the Indian regions, the Indian territories that borders this Nepal, and also the border region of China uh, across our border, that is Nepal in the north. Now, let me begin that India became a little sensitive for the development of the border regions only when Atal Bihari Vajpayee came to the power for the first time around 2000 or even before at that time. So then focus was given actually for the development of the roads in the regions in Bihar or even in Uttar Pradesh. Certain plans were made at that time for the development of the roads and development activities there. Only after that, but that was from the security perspective at that time. Now with China, as I told you that we had this diplomatic relations with China only in 1955. Before that, we had diplomatic relations with Tibet. So after 1956, after 1955, in 1956, China and Nepal agreed for this visa regulation, passport regulations, and then it became interested actually to develop infrastructure to connect Nepal to Tibet at that time. So in 1963, actually, we had some kind of agreement with China, and China started making roads between Kathmandu, that is the capital of Nepal, and then this Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, and the road was completed in 1966, and it was made operational in 1967 at that time. But then at that time, China was in a very weak position, not only strategically, but even economically and otherwise. And that was also the situation when certain problems existed in Tibet. So it was thought that that this new road that connected Kathmandu with Lhasa, that was treated not commercially very much viable, and no such trade took place through that way. So it was virtually only later on that people began to move on that road, that is after 1 or 2 decades. And then the movement of commodities also started, that is trade also started from that route between Nepal and China. Now, let me tell you in this respect that there has been another dramatic change across the border in China, that China has started making roads across our border, that is Nepal's border in its Tibetan part, along with in the border regions there. Now, another change and very important change is that China's interest in that Arniko Highway, which is also called this Tatopani, that passes through Tatopani, that is the border region between Nepal and China. So later on, or very recently, in recent years, China's interest in this Tatopani, or so to say Arniko Highway that connects Kathmandu with Lhasa, that declined and declined very substantially. Though much of the trade, land trade between the two countries used to take place through that way. China shifted its focus more on this Raswa-Gade Kerung road. Now that was also the road at some point of time when this there was conflict or war between Nepal and Tibet. At that time, China had supported Tibet, and they had fight with Nepal actually. So that happens through this Raswa-Gade and Raswa-Gade and Kerung, that is in the far west of this Tatopani or this Arniko Highway. So in the recent years, China's entire focus is more on that side. And we might have heard, and you might have heard that now China is also planning to develop roads through that Kerung. Kerung is in Tibetan side, and then this Raswagar is in the Nepal side. So it is planning to develop these roads through that Kerung Raswagari sector. It is also planning, plans are there to develop this railway train between Tibet and then this Nepal. So if that train or this roads are completed, roads already exist actually that connect us, that is Kathmandu, with this Kerung Raswagari, and we go across the border there. But then once this railway train is completed, this work is completed, and of course for that studies have already begun. Uh, so if that is complete, then Nepal will be connected with directly with this Lhasa, or to say with the entire other parts of China. So that is another important achievement. Now, another factor that is about the dramatic changes, that is China and Nepal. They are not only concentrated for the development of only this Kerung Raswagari highway or this train connectivity there. And it is also not that they have lost interest in this Arniko highway that already connects Kathmandu with this Lhasa. Certain trade, though it stops at a certain period of time, but then it again occurs. So that its interest is still there. But more than that, it is more interested actually in developing this connectivity through the roads in different other parts of the two countries, say in Mustang or even Karnali or even in the Far East, Sankhwa Sabha. So this is the focus of China, that it wants to develop roads at various stretches of these Himalayas between the two countries, and so much so that it wants to connect the Tarai also actually through the roads. So never in the history of the two countries there was so much of focus for the development of this infrastructure in China and Nepal, as we see that that is happening in last few years. Now about India also. India is also not sleeping, and we find that over last 1 or 2 decades, India has played a very proactive role in connectivity, in developing connectivity between its border on different stretches of its territory in Bihar and then in Uttar Pradesh to develop infrastructure with Nepal, to develop connectivity with Nepal. So at 5 places, actually, there is a proposal, and rather to say, some work has also been done in certain places to develop this railway network directly connecting Indian railway with Nepali territory. So that is in Viratnagar, Jogbani, then in Janakpur, Jayanagar sector, we see, then in Nepalganj also, in Bhairaba also. So 4 or 5 plans are there to connect the two countries actually through the railway trains there. Now, as if this is not enough, there was also very strong proposal from the Indian side to develop connectivity with Kathmandu through the railway trains. And through this Raksaul is in the Indian side of the border, so through Raksaul Birganj, it wants to develop a railway train to link Kathmandu. So that is a very much there, very important proposal. But then work has not yet begun. I think that even a study has not been properly completed on this sector, but then the proposals are there. Then India is also very aggressively wanting to develop actually connectivity through the bus routes, and from several places in Nepal, India is connected actually from Kathmandu, from Pokhara, even from Janakpur, and other places. So roads are in operation actually through the roadways. Buses are flying between the two countries very regularly. That is there. Then sometimes back actually there is also a plan to develop this Ramayana circuit. So through the Ramayana circuit also connectivity is likely to be further pushed. And you might have heard that when Modi had visited, Indian Prime Minister Modi had visited last time in 2018 to Janakpur. A bus service also started from Janakpur to Ayodhya actually. Another bus started from Janakpur to Patna. So like that, connectivity from the Indian side is also growing and growing very fast here. As if that is not enough, then India is also building this Fulaki road just across its border in Nepal actually. Of course, this road was in operation even during the Rana period, that is before 1951 also. But then over the years, that is 70 years, we talked so much for this development of the road, but virtually nothing happened like that. Now India has taken an initiative to contribute for the development of this road. Now part of this will be made by India. So my point was that when we see that this China is very aggressive in developing infrastructure and developing connectivity with Nepal, India doesn't seem to be behind. It is making equally aggressive, taking aggressive steps to develop connectivity with Nepal, and that is rewarding actually. So connectivity is beneficial to Nepal. Uh, that is the position that we see. So I say to you that dramatic changes have started taking place in terms of developing the Indian side of the border. Uh, in the south, similarly, we see that China is making efforts to develop roadways and to develop these communication facilities across Nepal's border in this Tibetan territory. And at the same time, both the two countries, they are trying to develop connectivity with Nepal. And in some way or the other, we find that there is a sense of growing competition for developing this connectivity with Nepal from both the two sides, that is from the south as well as from the north. So this is all about the second part.
Thank you for this answer, sir. You have extensively worked on the border and trade that exists between India and Nepal. And this would be a two-part question. What impact do you consider the COVID-19 pandemic has had on this border and trade? And what form of research methodology would you recommend to assess this impact, considering that most of the border and trade between India and Nepal is conducted in an informal manner?
Let me tell you that this COVID is a great phenomenon at the global level, because in the entire history of this mankind, of course, we had several pandemics in the past, and that had taken toll to the life in a very large number. That is there. But then this pandemic, that is COVID pandemic, is very different in the character that it is spread to the entire world actually within the very shortest period of time because of the fast transport links that exists at the global level. And then its impact, that is economic impact, is much more ruthless actually there. So even we, that is the Nepalese and Indians, we are not immune from the impact that this COVID has had, and we are seriously impacted. You know that from March 24, that is Nepal, Nepal imposed this lockdown, nationwide lockdown, and I think just almost that very time, a day before or so, India also clamped down actually this nationwide lockdown. It was almost the same period, one day before or one day after. Nepal, we did it on 24th of March. And since then, our border is closed actually. Rather, it is sealed. And it is sealed from the two sides. Even from the Nepalese side, we have put a large number of security personnel to see that no one from the Nepalese side go to India. And no Indians come from that part to our country. Similarly, your Sahasrabal, uh, uh, which is taking care of this border. So even that is your force, that is your security personnel are also deployed very heavily, and they are doing the same thing. So we see that for last 5 months, this border is very tight, almost sealed, and movement of people from one country to that of the other is very difficult for last 5 months. So in the entire history of our two countries, it never happened that this border remained closed for such a very long time. Actually, it is very unique. Now that has changed the relations among the border inhabitants of the two countries, and that is quite natural, because since movement is not taking place from one country to that of the other, so naturally their social relations have been disturbed, their economic relations have been disturbed, their cultural relations, religious relations have been disturbed. So there is no field, there is no sector in which it has not made any impact actually. And the border inhabitants actually are more seriously affected by this closing of the border than people of any other part of Nepal, or to say even in India, in other parts of India. So it is primarily the border inhabitants between Nepal and India on both the two sides. They are very severely affected by this COVID, because you know that lots of hot bazaars are taking place in the border regions, in the two sides of the border regions. When there are hot bazaars in Nepal side, then the Indian people come to Nepal side and purchase their commodities of daily needs. Similarly, the Nepalese enter into the Indian hot bazaars or Indian markets to buy necessary goods for their daily uses. So this practice is very seriously hampered. This is what we see. And equally, we are finding that it has made very severe impact on other relations between our two countries also. So this is very significant development that has affected the relations between our two countries, the trade between our two countries, the business relations between our two countries, the flow of labor between the two countries. So it has impacted almost each and every sector, but then including trade and business, informal trade that is taking place, because you know that we have this trade relationship, but then more of the trade between Nepal and India that takes place through the informal sector rather than the formal sector. So that is very much disturbed. Now, because of that factor, the economy of Nepal is very seriously affected, and I think that even in India, the economy of the border regions, people of the border regions in India, that is also very significantly impacted. Because we have heard that in Raxaul and say in Birganj, so most of the people of Birganj, that is the border town in Nepal, they often go to the Indian side of the border, that is in Raxaul. And we have been told by our friends in Raxaul and Birganj that Raxaul is dried actually because of this lockdown and because of the restrictions on the movement of the people. Similarly, many Indian people used to come to the Nepal side to buy certain goods from this side of the border, but then they are equally finding hardship in coming to this place. So very severe impact we see it has made in business and trade between the two countries. Now, about this border trade, or especially about this informal trade, certain studies have been conducted in the past. There is no doubt in it. Even in India, there have been certain efforts to assess the nature of informal sector trade between the two countries, the practices of informal sector trade between the two countries. Uh, and so even in Nepal also some efforts have been made to conduct some such kind of studies. Now, in this context, it would be important actually, since we have this restrictions on the movement of people from one country to the other, and it is not only restrictions on the movement of people, but there is also restrictions on the movement of goods also, because in Nepal, essential goods are coming, but many other goods are not coming actually, other than essential goods, many other items that we used to import from India, they are not happening. And it is for this reason that many of the industries, they have almost been closed in Nepal because they don't get adequate raw materials from that side. So this is the problem, and this has also eroded the purchasing power of the people actually in both sides of the two countries. It has made this impact. So it would be important that, and we also don't know actually how long this lockdown or say curfew will continue in Nepal, because we had reports that 41 out of 77 districts in Nepal, they are virtually under this curfew or this lockdown or the selling of the certain sensitive areas that is there. Now we see that in India we have more of openings actually, but then still the problems of COVID is there in many parts of Bihar, many parts of this Uttar Pradesh. Though you don't have that much of curve on the movement of the people from one place to the other as we have in Nepal. But then we don't know actually this way the casualties are growing, the infections are growing from COVID in both the two countries. We don't know. And it will be quite premature to say how long and this situation will continue. But one thing is sure that this movement on the border that will remain restricted for a certain period of time to come. So normalcy is not going to achieve very times in near future. This is the situation. Now I asked about this some kind of methodology for the study of this informal sector. So it depends on the nature. It depends on the nature of a study, what kind of a study we want to conduct. Accordingly, this methodology will be decided. So I don't want to give much more focus on that. But then it would be most relevant, I should say most relevant, that some studies are conducted with the objective to reduce the hardships that the people on both sides of the border are facing due to COVID and due to the restrictions of restrictions on the movement of people at the border. So some kind of arrangement has to be made, some kind of a strategy has to be made, whereby people could easily restore the same kind of scenario, the same kind of situation that used to prevail between the border inhabitants of the two countries earlier.
Thank you, sir, for the answer. Our last question for today's session is, what are your recommendations to emerging scholars who intend to research about the Indo-Nepal border and its borderland regions?
Again, let me tell you that there has not been enough of studies on the relations between Nepal and India. And of course, the study on border relations of the two countries, that is still very much limited actually. Not much efforts have been made even by the Nepalese scholars or the Indian scholars to conduct serious studies on different facets of the relations that exist among the border inhabitants of the two countries, though it is very much important in shaping the overall relations between the two countries. I want to tell one thing very explicitly, that it is the border inhabitants of the two countries that have played key role in cementing, in strengthening the relations between the two countries actually. As you know that the border is open between Nepal and India, that is open. We don't need visa or any, there is no other border regulations to restrict the movement of the people from one side of the border to the other. So naturally there is a roti beti ka sambandh, or marriage are very quite common between the two countries. And because of this frequent marriages taking place among the border inhabitants of the two countries, the relations is getting younger and younger. Though, of course, over the past years, there has been a trend in which the number of marriages that is declining actually, because of this mass problems, because of the different security arrangements that are developing on both sides of the border. The marriage relations are declining. That is unfortunate. But then still, actually, their marriage relations are there on a very huge scale among the border inhabitants of the two countries, and that has helped actually to strengthen the overall political relations, the diplomatic relations, the economic relations between our two countries intact actually. Now there are certain elements in Nepal and also in India. They are not very happy with the role that these border inhabitants are playing in cementing, in strengthening, or rather in giving continuity to the relations between the two countries on different fronts. And therefore, some efforts have been made actually to create a thought, to create a gap in the relations by through different means. Now, I don't want to go in details about the efforts that have been made to bring a gap between the border inhabitants of the two countries. But then some efforts are there, and I deliberately wanted to bring this point here, thinking that there is now a greater need for the scholars of the two countries to focus on this area actually, to focus on how these border inhabitants of the two countries, they have strengthened the relations between the two countries, and how we can give a continuity to it in the time to come in future as well. So I think scholars both in Nepal as well as in India need to focus on studies in the border regions, specifically between Nepal and India. And let me tell you that how we can promote it. Now we have different universities in the Indian side. Say in Gorakhpur we have university in the border regions. In Darbhanga we have universities. In Muzaffarpur we have universities. Now similarly we have universities and colleges spread up like say in Viratnagar in Nepal, in Janakpur, in Birganj. Different universities have been opened in Nepal side, also in the Indian side of the border. So maybe we can push up actually. That is, there is one scenario in which those who have already conducted studies on this border issues between Nepal and India, there should be there should be certain seminars, there should be certain meeting, or like in present time actually, there could be Zoom meeting also among such scholars who have already worked actually, though the work is limited, but then some people have worked in Nepal, some people have worked in India. So let those people actually brainstorm, let those people actually sit together in the seminars or through the conferences actually, time to time. And then I think that youngsters, young scholars, they should be promoted. They should be given a scholarship, a scholarship to conduct work on some of these aspects. So, frequent meetings between the scholars of Nepal and the scholars of India who have already jumped into this area, who have already contributed in this area, and also those who could be motivated to work further in this area. That is very, very much important. And I think that South Asian University, which has this interest in this borderland studies, so that should focus on this area. And I would rather like that international conferences that happened in the past in other parts of India. Of course, it has not taken place in Nepal, but then we could somehow or the other attract the international scholars also to focus on the border studies, specifically between Nepal and India, uh, because that is going to be a lot, that is going to be advantageous in the long-term interest of the people and even to the government of the two countries. Thank you very much, sir. This is all.
Thank you for the answer, sir. And the recommendations for improving actually research on India-Nepal borders are quite unique and very interesting. And overall, thank you for giving us this time and teaching us about the Indo-Nepal borders, especially its history. It has been a wonderful interaction with you, sir. And almost everyone who's going to watch this video would learn a lot about the Indo-Nepal border.
Thank you very much. I think that we should keep this spirit up in the time to come.
Yes.
And whenever you need my involvement, my engagement in some of these activities, I will be available for that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.